We begin with a brief note on a serious situation in Jefferson County this afternoon where a deputy was shot at by a guy he was trying to evict. That deputy wasn't injured. Happened just north of West 58th and Kipling on Garrison Street. That suspect, who was barricaded in this house, is now in custody. We have not yet learned if that person was injured. We'll be updating the story here and online as we learn more. Another investigation says Longmont police should have known better, should have known you don't train drug dogs with warrantless searches of low-income homes, should have known that it was a constitutional minefield. This time, it's the Longmont Housing Authority's own investigation that finds that its staff also should have known better, but that says Longmont police should never have gone along with the plan. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
Did any of your investigation deal with police doing right or wrong?
Yes.
Did police do right?
I don't believe so.
Longmont Housing Authority Board Attorney David Herrera determined police did wrong by joining Housing Authority staff on inspections of low-income housing units. In a 6-page investigation summary, he writes, peace officer standards and training and previous case law gave law enforcement ample opportunity to advise the Housing Authority it could not participate.
I don't believe they should have made an appearance at the doors of these residents.
He never found out why they were there because he never got to talk to police for his investigation. Finding the police chief shouldn't be that hard. I mean, he works right there. I'm told he's out of town today, but we're not the only ones that want to talk with him. Board Attorney Dave Herrera says he never heard back from the chief or any of the other officers involved in the searches.
I would like to have more interviews with law enforcement.
His investigation also found the Housing Authority staff should never have been conducting the searches of units in the first place.
And there needs to be training around that so that the staff knows that there is a difference between being a property manager and providing supportive services.
The searches of the suites came to be after staff found a unit where meth had been used, then someone died of a drug overdose. So the staff wanted to inspect specific units suspected of drug use under the guise of mandatory lease inspection with the help of police and drug dogs.
Did they know or should they have known? No. They did not know. Should they have known? No, not necessarily.
One of his recommendations is for better staff training on public housing management and constitutional rights. For Next, I'm Marshall Zellinger.
Those warrantless searches were abandoned once we made them public. Proof that real news combined with a real reaction from our community can still make a difference. Longmont police and city leaders insist that they do not have to release an outside law enforcement investigation that also found that consent procedures weren't followed. That secret report is our best chance to find out what really happened in Longmont, so we'll stay after it. Senator Cory Gardner's staff will not say where he stands on the new Republican plan to repeal Obamacare without a replacement, and the senator has not granted anyone at 9 News an interview in the last 7 weeks. His staff said today that he wasn't available and that he hadn't decided whether to support the repeal and replacement plan, which went down in flames last night. That would likely come as a great surprise to Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who chose Gardner to have at his side today as Republican leaders announced their new path forward, a straight-up repeal of Obamacare with a 2-year countdown to agree on a replacement. Senator Gardner supported that plan in 2015 when Republicans knew that their repeal would just be vetoed by then-President Obama. He expressed concern about repeal only since President Trump was elected, and repeal suddenly got real. A lot of Democrats seem content to sit back and watch Republicans bicker aboard their bus as they drive it over a cliff. Unfortunately, that bus also holds the health care of every American. So today, politics guy Brandon Ritteman pressed Colorado's Democratic Senator Michael Bennet on when Democrats will be part of the solution.
Now that we've seen this particular repeal and replace effort fail, where is the Democratic plan?
Well, for one thing, I think we should stop talking about Obamacare and start talking about the health care system that we have in this country. And there are plenty of us that have bills with Republicans and other Democrats that would help fix our health care system and make it better, make it more transparent, make it more affordable, create more competition in the system.
At McConnell's press conference, we did see Cory Gardner show up there, and he warned against Democrats spiking the football. He pointed specifically to those new numbers out of Colorado showing a 27% average increase in premiums on the individual market in Colorado.
I think we're going to need much more competition in our health insurance system than we presently have. I think we need far more transparency than we have. Right now we're in a system where anybody can raise their rates in health care, and nobody knows what anything really costs. But the idea that a majority of a party that has the presidency, a majority in the Senate and a majority of the House, would say that somehow double-digit increases in insurance companies are the other party's fault when they haven't passed a piece of legislation with their majorities, I think is absolutely outrageous.
Brandon Ritteman's full interview with Senator Bennett is up right now on the Next YouTube page. That's where we put our full unedited interviews so that you can get more detail and you can see that we don't take anything out of context. They're at youtube.com/next on 9 News. May I make a recommendation? Point you towards some work that is not from 9 News but is worth your time. About 20 minutes or so. The New Yorker has a long read that focuses on President Trump's supporters in Grand Junction. The piece, How Trump is Transforming Rural America, touches on, among other things, how the president's sharp tone seems to be rubbing off on some of the most polite and mannerly people in our state. This is in print July 24th. It's online now, and you can find a link on the Next Facebook page. A prominent conservative leader in Colorado is taking a direct shot at President Trump and his administration for refusing to come to this weekend's Western Conservative Summit in Denver. Candidate Trump came last year, but he's skipping this year, along with all the cabinet members invited to address the conservative faithful in Colorado. The summit's organizer, Centennial Institute Director Jeff Hunt, told me today, quote, "Has President Trump visited anywhere west of the Mississippi? I'm not sure he has. Germany, France, Saudi Arabia, Italy, and the U.S. Open have seen President Trump, but not half the country. Sad." President Trump's personal attorney, who's defending him from allegations of collusions with the Russians, is speaking at this weekend's summit. Few stories of national significance go largely untold for 5 years. This one, for a variety of reasons, has. Thursday marks 5 years since the theater shooting. More than 100 police officers responded that night. Not one has publicly discussed their specific roles until now. Our Chris Vanderveen sat down with 8 of them.
Faces. Faces of those who faced much more than their worst fears that night. John Gonzalez, first officer in.
I could still hear the gunfire when I got to the door.
John Merrick, second in. Gerald Johnsgard tried to control the scene.
You become a cop for a reason. This is the reason.
Stephen Redfern made the decision not to wait for the ambulances. Mike Hawkins drove 2 of the critically wounded in his car to the hospital.
And the firefighter said to me very quietly, "You need to go like hell. You need to get there fast."
8 Aurora cops, think of them as you will. Brian Butler was convinced he was going to get shot. James Waselko carried wounded. Jason Oviatt arrested the shooter.
When I first saw him, I thought he was a cop.
8 faces of 8 men who ran toward the gunfire. Think what you will of their profession. But for this story, put all of your personal feelings aside, just for a moment, and listen.
You a different person today?
I'd say so.
And then ask yourself, could I have done what they did? And then look into their faces. And then consider it fortunate if you never have to face that question. At 12:38 a.m., while responding to a call of shots fired, multiple people down.
Chris asked that you consider those thoughts, especially in light of some really highly critical social media comments directly about those particular officers. We also invite you to watch Chris's full story tomorrow night on 9 News at 9 and 10. Aurora's bench strength is not strong. We're going to fix this sad situation tonight. The city of Denver wants some of its citizens to come out of the shadows and into safer spaces. And 2 Frontier flight attendants deal with some very public baggage. Next. If you watch Next often, you know we specialize in 2 things: defending your constitutional rights, a la the Longmont warrantless searches, and also fixing minor municipal nuisances. Moving mailboxes that block wheelchairs, light poles that obstruct handicap spots, a parking meter that you had to straddle at a bus stop, and now replacing the saddest bus bench in all of Colorado. I mean, it was 2 cinder blocks and a piece of wood. Aurora was not being done any image favors by this raggedy-looking bench on Alameda and Lansing. A Next Viewer's Photo sent us out there, and to ask the city for, I don't know, maybe a little bit of effort, they contacted the advertising company in charge of placing the benches, and voila! Through the power of social media, an odd television show, and mild public shaming, that is a brand new bus bench. So plant your posterior on that, Aurora. Lean back on the ad's mouth-watering mountain of sweet potatoes. And when your happy backside thanks you, your friends at Next say, you're welcome.
Warm with afternoon thunderstorms, a typical day in mid-July and midsummer, and that's what we have in Denver today. Looking east, we have clear skies. Looking west, dark clouds brewing, and some of those storms have a bit of wind and lightning with them. Highs back in the mid-90s today, above average, a trend that will continue for the rest of this week. We're tracking thunderstorms producing heavy rain and flash flooding in the Fountain and Colorado Springs areas. Some of the storms have hail outside of Yuma, Burlington, and Ray. Flash flood watch posted for western Colorado. The tropical moisture flow finally beginning to shift eastward as high pressure ridge begins to build down, and that means our chance for rain, maybe heavy rain, will increase moving into Thursday night and Friday. And on top of that, we have cooler weather for the upcoming weekend. So if you've had it with hot highs in the mid-90s, close to 100 degrees, relief is on the way. Tonight, just isolated gusty storms under partly cloudy skies with a low of 64, high temperature at 96 tomorrow. Warm until the end of the week, then we have an increased chance for thunderstorms that could bring some moderate rain, and right now in the Fort Collins area, it is absolutely beautiful, Kyle.
Kathy, thanks. There's a better way to deal with fire code violations than kicking struggling artists out into the cold of a December night. And the city of Denver seems to recognize that it made a mistake in how it handled the shutdown of a couple of popular art spaces where people were working and living. Our Noel Brennan details a different approach.
And they're on piano wires, which gives them a little bit of bob.
Not every work of art needs a name.
I don't even remember what I called it.
Though titles can help fill a void.
This one is called the end of a painful situation.
Lori Lynx Murphy still cares more about creating work than naming it.
I've always lived and worked in these kinds of spaces.
Spaces like Rhinoceropolis and Glob that the city shut down last December because of fire code safety violations.
And it drove the community completely underground. People basically went into hiding, stopped advertising shows.
The city wants to ease tension.
Yeah.
Last night, the city council passed a new safe occupancy program.
We need folks to know that they're safe, right? That they won't be kicked out if they go through this program.
The Rhino Art District calls it a good first step.
We have to start building trust, right, between the city and artists. And I think this bill can really help us move that forward in the right direction.
The program allows artists to stay in a red tag building so long as they work to bring it up to code.
This is my studio.
And meet set deadlines.
To get it up to code requires a lot of things like sprinkler systems, points of egress.
Improvements aren't cheap on an artist's budget.
No one is going to step forward really until there's some money.
I think there is a lot of money for arts in the city of Denver.
It's time for real investment in the long term of this arts community here, or there will be no arts community here.
All an artist needs is a space to live and create.
We love it here, and this is our community, and we're fighting to stay.
For Next, I'm Noel Brennan.
So the city's going to expect each of these buildings, but they're not going to make owners or tenants immediately fix code violations unless there are serious safety concerns. Why do people say Westminster? Seriously, Westminster. Anyone with two eyes can tell you there's only one in Westminster. The most Colorado thing we saw today is kind of an animal guarding other animals, and another of your personal and permanent stories. Next. If you thought it was tough being a Frontier Airlines passenger, paying an extra fee for your carry-on, your snack, for eye contact, here's a window into what it's like being a Frontier employee.
One of the things that we pride ourselves is on our Rocky Mountain hospitality, and we have a couple of flight attendants here today with us, Lisa and Michael.
Lisa and Michael are having another banner day working for Frontier. standing motionless, waiting to reveal Frontier's 21 new flights from Denver.
It was just a few years ago that Frontier began its transition to what is known as an ultra-low-cost carrier. Not an easy transition.
Surely Lisa and Michael could tell us all about that transition, but they're still holding the banner. I'd like to tell you Frontier's new destinations, but there's a fee for that. Oh, you have cash? Well then, you can go to Reno, Palm Springs, Fargo, Albuquerque, Buffalo, Ontario, Spokane, Pensacola. We've been everywhere. And Lisa and Michael are still standing there, 6 minutes into this speech.
And so without further delay, we'll unveil our announcement where we launch 21 new cities from Denver today.
Oh, come on. Please clap. For Lisa and Michael, another banner day at Frontier. Usually when we play our favorite game, What Do You Say? Settling a pronunciation debate, we'll give you some clues about the place, and then we will reveal the name in the proper way that the locals pronounce it. But I'm just going to say it here, okay? It's Westminster, not Westminster. Westminster. Come on, people. There were a slew of you. Cory, Wayne, Dominic, Barney, Janet, Barbara, Steve, all wanted this settled once and for all. Mayor's going to handle this for us. All right, Mr. Mayor, what do you say?
The proper way to pronounce the name of the city is Westminster.
How are the other ways you hear people say it?
Westminster. And what they do is, in the spelling of Westminster, they tend to put an I in front of the S, and there's not one. I can't tell you why they do it. I would just tell you it's a very common mispronunciation. I've even heard some people who were born here that say it that way once in a while. As long as they know where the city's at, in fact, they can't pronounce the name correctly, that's okay.
A very common mispronunciation. The mayor says Westminster even gets official mail addressed to a city with an extra I. All right, what place name debate can we settle for you? Email next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. The most Colorado thing we saw today. 2 young entrepreneurs who grew up in the city but always wanted to put down roots in a more rural spot of Colorado. They want a taste of ranch life, and they're willing to work for it. Linus LePink and Connor Demlow are both 21 years old. They formed an LLC, Willow Creek Pastures. Started with 25 chickens last year, and we all know that chickens are a gateway animal. So then they got 5 sheep. Now they have 157 sheep and a tidy little ranching operation.
You don't see young people in this profession, no.
Yeah.
So.
What's up with that?
Well, both me and my business partner, we grew up in the city, and we don't necessarily enjoy the city, so we like being out in the land like this. And I've worked at multiple ranches, so has Linus, and school wasn't necessarily for us, so we decided to start a business, and that was the best way to do it.
You hear the animals in the background there. They're selling their products online and at farmers markets. Hey, if you've ever passed the Aurora Plains Conservation Center, you might have seen their herd out there. It's on the property. They're guarded by donkeys that are ready to give any fox or coyote a good donkey kicking if the need should arise. That is a whole different story and a pretty interesting one, which you can see in this article on 9news.com. We have toads, we have tattoos, and we have your feedback on the best thing to happen to Next recently, right after this. They are your most personal stories, so meaningful you have them written on you. Shelley Romick shared the message her husband Josh carries with him everywhere. I love you, Dad. The words in the handwriting from their 4-year-old daughter Megan as she wrote them in her Father's Day card 2 years ago. Isn't that neat? You can show us the messages that are permanently near your heart or your arm. Email next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. It's a sign spotted by Mary Matthews as she was hiking last week near the Henderson Mine in Empire. Boreal toad crossing. Naturally, we wondered, what exactly are boreal toads? Well, let's get educated, shall we? Boreal toad is an endangered species, has been since 1993. The biggest problem keeping the toad population alive apparently is a skin fungus. Sounds very private. It's an amphibian thing. They live in ponds and marshes at high elevation. David gives us our feedback tonight. This was actually directly to Marshall Zellinger. Great work on the Longmont housing searches, quality journalism. Congrats on the move to 9 News. Aren't we lucky? One of my favorite reporters, and now he works here. See you next time.